this is a stage for political leaders to interact with business leaders. Very straightforward. What are the key messages you're trying to put forward this time?
Well, firstly, good afternoon, everybody. It's really great to be here. Can I say thank you for what you do as the business leaders around the world? It's a really important role. I believe very strongly that actually all countries require political leadership to set the rules and set the operating framework up. We need business leaders like yourselves that actually execute with speed and scale and actually drive the growth. And then obviously we need our community leaders seeing the pain, the hurt, the need in our communities. And actually between government, business, community, we all have a responsibility to collaborate and work on the opportunities, but also the challenges we have. So I think these forums are so important because they actually force connectivity between the different actors in our society, which is so important. And New Zealand is a country that has benefited tremendously from the rules-based system over the last 70 to 80 years. As I would put it, so have so many other countries. And I think we need to reaffirm the rules-based order, given some of the challenges that we see in the trading environment in the world today.
This region, Asia Pacific, particularly with APEC, has been celebrating free trade and multilateralism for more than 35 years.
Right.
But now, of course, we have a lot of headwinds. So I want to have a reality check with you, Mr. Prime Minister, about what you think is the stage where we are, and as policymakers, what should be the right step? Actions, by the way.
Yeah, well, look, I think there's a few things going on. There's no doubt about it. The rules-based system is being upended, and it's a lot more contested, a lot more fragmented, and a lot more challenging environment out there in the global economy. I think there's three shifts going on. The first is actually a shift from rules to power, and we're seeing that with a lot of conflict that's existing in the world. I think the second big thing is the connectivity between prosperity and security. The two are inextricably linked. We've seen that with a number of conflicts around the world that actually have caused huge economic pain and suffering for citizens, and we actually need to be able to we can't have prosperity without security and stability. And the third thing I'd say is there's been a shift, I think, from we had very efficient global supply chains to now building much more national resilience and national industrial policy and protectionism. And so those are the three shifts that I observe, and that's a change in the environment. But within all of that, there is still tremendous amounts of opportunity, and it's up for each individual country to work out how it can compete and how it can win. For us in New Zealand, we're a small country, and we have felt that actually getting rid of tariffs and subsidies in the 1980s, the 1990s, has meant that our businesses are very fit, they're very lean, they're very competitive, and they go out in the world and they actually are world class and they compete very well. And for us, that is the right trade policy that we believed that we can work with.
Mr. Prime Minister, you mentioned actually in a very concise answer a lot of points. Tariff, for example, where are you stand on tariff today, as things are changing so fast as we speak?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's what I said before. New Zealand is a small trading nation where 1 in 4 of our jobs are tied to international trade, has just believed that for us, the best model is to have very lean, efficient, successful, competitive businesses. And so we have built that over the last 20, 30 years. So our businesses can go out in the world, compete from New Zealand with the best in the world and do very well. And so for us, I appreciate, say, the US has a different trade policy. Every country's acting in its national interests. But for us, we believe very strongly in that rules-based system, the free flow of trades and goods. So we will continue to make that case in forums like APEC and ASEAN, where I've just come from, because we need to remake the case for the rules-based system. Yes, the system needs some upgrading. The WTO needs reforms, all of those good things. But I think there's still a huge opportunity for us to continue to build out. And the other thing that we've been doing is that we've obviously been at the heart of a lot of those free trade agreements in the world, and our exporters have got very, very good and very agile at moving their product from one market to another market with great speed and great flexibility. So, yes, it's very choppy waters, but actually we know where we want to go to as a country, and it's about our relative competitiveness.
You mentioned a lot of balancing. Actually, in your previous answer, whether it's cooperation or competition, whether it is about technology, where do we stand? So I want to ask a little bit of balancing.
Yeah.
For example, this region hosts some of the largest economies in the world, the number 1 and number 2, and number 3, and the list goes on. Meanwhile, you also have a diversity of economies. So how would you take your delicate balance while you're speaking here, when you're meeting all your counterparts, and geopolitically speaking, for New Zealand, how to stand your way?
Well, I think there's 195 countries in the world, 8 billion people, and each country has its own independent foreign policy. It plots its own course as to what it's trying to do, and it acts in its own national interests. Having said all of that, we are big believers of being externally focused and building relationships and rapport with other countries as well. And so I'm a big believer, as it is in your personal relationships, the same it is in our foreign relationships, that actually if we have a relationship with each other that can be long-standing, good relationships, you can cooperate where you can, and you do as much cooperation as you possibly can, but you also acknowledge that you have differences, and it's okay to talk about those differences in your bilateral meetings and in discussions and forums like this, because actually if you have high trust and you have a good relationship, you have real conversations about the difficulties or the differences that you have, and then you still find a way forward to say, well, let's cooperate where we can, differ where we must, and work together with like-minded countries as a result.
The question is where the trust comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's where forum like this are so important, because it is actually an opportunity for the leaders to meet one-on-one, to build relationships with each other, to understand with each other. And the day that we stop, even when we've got differences, the day that we stop convening and having a convening organisation like APEC that can bring these leaders together to actually discuss, debate, understand each other better, there's still, when you have relationships, you talk about the possibilities of what you can do together.
Right.
Then you put the plan and then you get results and outcomes.
Innovation, particularly in the field of artificial intelligence. APEC CEO Summit has a lot of topics involved that, and meanwhile, there will be a lot of interactions as well. So where do you stand when it comes to artificial intelligence, because policy really matter?
Yeah, look, I think, there is much more opportunity than there is downside risk with AI. I know there's a lot of conversation around, for all our economies, and particularly for a country like New Zealand, there is just so much more upside through adoption of technology, AI, quantum, a whole bunch of the technologies that are there. For us, I think, and that's up for you as the business leaders to think about how you're going to keep adopting technology to transform your business models, to improve your margin and build great businesses commercially, culturally, customer-wise. But for us as government leaders, I also think there is a real impatience from the public around the world and frustration from around the world that governments are not delivering. They're not delivering outcomes that actually improve my daily life. And so I think for us running large public services, there's a huge opportunity to transform government through AI. And it's a conversation we're starting in New Zealand as we digitize government, because we want to have large service organisations that are customer focused, that are technology enabled, and actually are serving the people that they serve. And I think in government there's often a loss of who's the customer, and of course it's the public of your country that actually want those services being consumed in a really good way.
Businesses, though, are concerned about the danger, whether there's going to be different standards, 2 different or 3 different systems that they have to deal with. What do you make of that?
Well, that's again where forums like this and the work of the business leaders of APEC is to actually put the solutions forward. Don't just come forward with the problems, come forward with the solution, because you're the closest to it. And often our public servants and our advisors and our government folk aren't. So that's where I think forums like this are really helpful. And the APEC leaders group, that's a task that they should be really thinking very deeply about what would be the right regulatory settings that we could get as many countries signed up for as possible. And that's what I mean by the innovation that can come out of forums like APEC if we take a challenge like that.
The thing about short-term and long-term, that really matters for businesses. So there have been concern about the short-termism, as some say, in policies and in politics. Mr. Prime Minister, your take on that, and how do you think you can avoid that with your administration?
Yeah, look, I think you've got to keep an eye on both those things, the macro arc of where you're trying to drive your country to. In New Zealand, we're very clear. We're going to build the best small country on earth, period. But you have to keep an eye on the long-term regulatory settings, because I agree with you. I think for business, what you need is certainty, clarity, consistency, so that you can make that investment. Consumers want that so that they can actually spend.
From business leaders to political leaders, what is it like?
It's fantastic. It's a huge privilege to be Prime Minister or President of a country. I mean, it's the most challenging job I've had, but it's also the most rewarding job because you get to see incredible people doing amazing things every day. But you also have a responsibility to actually, a lot of the things that you think about as a business leader, when I was at Unilever or at Air New Zealand, you're thinking about strategy, you're thinking about the situation you're in. And so for me as a new Prime Minister in the last 2 years, I've determined that New Zealand's in a turnaround mode. So when you're in turnaround, you've got to be very clear about what you will do and what you won't do. Mm-hmm. What is the immediate priority? You can't boil the ocean and do everything. And so you've got to be very intentional and very choiceful about the things you will spend your resources and time on. That's the same process that the business leaders go through. But it is different running a country than a company, for sure.